Together, the ASEAN member states form an economic powerhouse. ASEAN cities are booming, urbanization and consumer growth are moving in tandem. Today, 22% of ASEAN's population lives in cities of more than 200,000 inhabitants, and the urban areas account for more than 54% of the region's gross domestic product. ASEAN is home to 227 of the world's largest companies, intensified by the aim of the ASEAN Economic Community for a seamless regional market and production base, focusing on jobs and prosperity, transforming the region into the next frontier of consumer growth that requires enormous investment in infrastructures. But at what point this economic progress becomes a threat to the region's flora and fauna? Overexploitation and mismanagement of natural resources lead to environmental degradation, which will consequently defer the region's sustainable economic growth. As a matter of fact, last September 11, 2017, the Nam Ao Dam in the Shankwang province of Laos has bursted, causing flooding of surrounding villages and farmland. The dam was 85% under construction by the Bothong Inter Company when, due to heavy rain, a sub-reservoir of the dam was damaged. No injuries or deaths have been reported, but incidents like this may have caused fatal damages, especially to the nearby communities. More importantly, how the indigenous communities who prefer to preserve their cultural identities are affected with the rapid growth of industrialization. The 400 megawatt Lower Sesan 2 hydropower plant is the latest and biggest hydropower dam in Cambodia. It is 56.5 meters tall and covering 36,000 hectares of land. The plant will start to operate on November 2017 and estimated to produce 1.9 billion kilowatt-hour per year. That will be sold at the fixed price of 6.95 cents per kilowatt-hour. The project is majorly owned by China's Waneng Hydrolankang International Energy. China is the largest investor in developing hydroelectric dams in Cambodia. However, the construction of Lower Sesan 2 hydropower plant has been a threat to 5,000 people from 7 villages in Cambodia. particularly to the Bunong people, an ethnic minority group who inhabited the area for 2,000 years and whose livelihood and culture depends on the river and the forest.
To find, demand them to respond to what they violate and destroy our land, our life, our property, everything.
Resettlement compensation packages were offered to the Bunong people in exchange of their habitats. Widows and the extremely impoverished were the most susceptible to the offer. The red markings on the houses indicate that the family has agreed to the compensation package, while the blue markings indicate that the family has rejected the offer. There are reports that armed police officers banned all gatherings that relate to the environment issues, and signing of the petitions are not permitted. The Bunong people have little in common with mainstream Cambodian culture. Their displacement will adversely endanger their very existence and identity. Indonesia is one of the Asian countries blessed with a climate suitable for palm oil plantation. Wilmar International, a Singapore-headquartered firm and the world's largest palm oil company, rely heavily in its plantations in Indonesia, particularly in Sumatra, West Kalimantan, and Central Kalimantan. However, there have been reports of deforestation by the Wilmar International, especially in the key habitats for endangered wildlife on the island of Sumatra. The Kapa, a Minangkabau people in West Sumatra, has also accused Wilmar International for violating their rights to free, prior, and informed consent and planted oil palm in their territories without permission. This was supported by the decision of the Round Table on Sustainable Palm Oil last January 2017. Meanwhile, in Claver, Surigao del Norte, Philippines, the Mamanwa tribe accused lawmaker Representative Prospero Pichay, who owns Claver Mineral Development Corporation, for violating Indigenous Peoples' Rights Act of 1997 for illegally mining and evicting them from their ancestral land in Barangay Cagdianao without paying any royalty. Last January 20, 2017, Veronico Lapsay de la Mente, 27 years old, a leader of Mamanwa tribe and an active anti-mining advocate, was killed in Punta Naga by unidentified gunmen. De la Mente was bound to join a meeting with the officials from the National Commission on Indigenous Peoples regarding violations and environmental catastrophe brought by mining corporations in their communities. In the Phetchaburi province of Thailand, the lives and houses of Karen people, a recognized Thai indigenous group, were burned down by National Park officers of Kaing Krashan. The Karen people were accused of deforestation and land encroachment, while in fact, They have lived there for centuries. The 105-year-old Karen Blind Elder was one of those affected by the government's decision. Because of his disability, the officers have to drag him out of the area by a helicopter. Indigenous activists and protests have emerged across the region, brought by the incessant violations on their rights. All of the 10 ASEAN member states have favored in the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. The question then would be, have they fully supported these policies in their respective countries? In January 2017, Indonesian President Joko Widodo has bestowed the right to manage customary forests on 9 indigenous communities, a highly symbolic step in the long fight for recognition by these indigenous people. While in the Philippines, Ms. Gina Lopez, the former Secretary of the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, has suspended numerous mining companies that were reported of violations on environmental regulations. She even initiated an interagency task force for land rights protection of indigenous people. Regional organizations have sprouted in the fight for the ASEAN Aboriginal communities. One of the prominent is ASEAN Indigenous Peoples Pact, founded in 1988 with 48 members from 14 countries in Asia. Committed in defending human rights and enhancing the sustainable management system on the territories and resources of indigenous communities. Southeast Asia is a home of diverse indigenous communities who have their own distinct culture and have strong cultural attachment to their livelihoods on land, forests, and natural resources. But in some cases, brought by economic integration, these groups are displaced from their territories, thus implying not only the loss of livelihood, but their identities as well. Efforts from the ASEAN leaders should include effectively addressing the legal recognition of indigenous communities as distinct peoples with collective rights under international human rights standards and norms. Strict implementation of the free, prior, and informed consent in relation to the planning and implementation and ratification by the 10 ASEAN member states on the International Labour Organization's Convention concerning indigenous and tribal peoples in independent countries, with the aim of recognizing the aspirations of these peoples to exercise control over their institutions, ways of life, and economic development, and to maintain and develop their identities, languages, and religions.
To make the distinction of those who are specifically disadvantaged because of their ethnicity, their historical marginalization.